Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. Andrew Hawkins, who had a marriage agreement with my family, lost the lower half of his body in an explosion during a mission and became impotent. My stepsister, Tiffany, who had always been at odds with me, took the chance to confirm the engagement. She was thrilled to be married, and even everything in the house that originally belonged to me was handed over to her. She only left with one wooden box. Everyone said I had finally found relief after all the hardship, but only I knew I had narrowly escaped becoming the first wife. In my previous life, I used the medicine left behind by my grandfather to cure Andrew. I became the highly respected wife of a decorated military officer. But when Tiffany went to the countryside looking for a remedy for Andrew, she caught the attention of a local thug. She was abused and eventually died from the torment. Andrew never once shared a bed with me throughout our marriage. He locked me in the house and let me starve to death. If you had given the medicine to Tiffany sooner, she wouldn't have been bullied to death. Now go repay your sins by serving him like a beast of burden. That was when I realized they had been in love from the beginning. Marrying me had been nothing but a last resort. Now that I have a second chance at life, I didn't expect Andrew to have already made his decision. But they still didn't know it was me who healed him, not that so-called miracle pill. When Dad heard that Tiffany had sealed the engagement, his face changed immediately. "Tiffany, stop this nonsense," he said, then turned to me. "Maggie, you're the eldest. You should take responsibility for the family. The commander is in such a condition. He needs someone to take care of him. Tiffany isn't suited for this." Andrew sat across from us in a wheelchair, his whole body reeking of medicine, expression unchanged, as if he wasn't the one being dismissed. This was already completely different from the previous life. Tiffany clung to Dad's arm and pouted playfully. "Daddy, I don't care. I just love Drew." Then she added mockingly, "Do you even know what it means to be impotent? That means living like a widow for the rest of your life. Just look at the pathetic state he's in." For the first time, Dad showed a cold face to Tiffany. Andrew's mother looked uncomfortable too, but didn't dare refute her daughter's words. She only asked carefully, "I heard Maggie's grandfather left behind some solar elixirs. They're said to be especially effective for injuries like this. Maggie, if you're willing to marry in with the medicine, our family is prepared to offer a $2,000 dowry." My stepmother and Dad both gasped in shock. Together, they didn't even earn $20 a month. But Andrew quickly cut in. "Mom, that kind of medicine is a scam. If we don't make it sound magical, who would we trick into marrying me? I only want to marry Tiffany." Andrew's mom turned to look at me. "Maggie, you really don't have it. My grandfather came from a family of royal physicians. His skills were legendary. Even the regional director once personally asked him for treatment. The medicine was real. No doubt about it." But I shook my head. Andrew scoffed coldly. "See, told you she's a liar." His mother's expression fell. But my father and stepmother still didn't agree to let Tiffany marry a man with no future. Andrew confidently declared, "I've already found a new treatment plan. Once everything settles, I'll return to the army. Marrying me will be a blessing for Tiffany." Tiffany nodded firmly. "Dad, Mom, I know the doctor. I guarantee he can cure Drew." My parents clearly didn't believe her. Andrew's mom noticed too. "Tiffany, stop making empty promises. If not, maybe Maggie should marry him instead. She was raised by her grandfather. She knows how to care for the sick. Even if the doctor fails, at least Maggie can take care of Drew." Clearly, she hadn't given up the idea of me marrying into their family. Living in the capital, she knew full well how powerful my grandfather's skills were. Tiffany got mad. "That doctor only works for me. If Drew doesn't marry me, he won't treat him. You decide." Andrew clutched Tiffany's hand tightly. "If I can't marry Tiffany, I'd rather die." Left with no choice, Andrew's mom started negotiating with my father and stepmother. In the end, the bride price was raised to $5,000 plus a bicycle, and a wedding banquet would be held at the state-run hotel in our town. I watched it all with a cold expression. At the very end I said, "You're not planning to touch the dowry my mom left me, are you?" My dad had married into my mom's family. Everything in the house, the furniture, the belongings had been hers. Tiffany gave me a smug look. Who wants your old junk? Drew's buying me everything brand new. But I do want one thing. That wooden stamp box you used to keep. Andrew's hand tightened involuntarily on the armrest of his wheelchair, staring at me intently. Even Tiffany's hands were trembling with nervousness when I nodded without hesitation. Only then did they both let out a breath of relief. Tiffany dashed into my room and grabbed the box. Andrew held the box and started to shake it. Hearing the rattling sound from the box, Tiffany and Andrew exchanged a look of delight before casting another cold glance in my direction. Andrew sneered. Maggie, I know you've always had a thing for me, but the only one I care about is Tiffany. So when the time comes, don't go getting all dramatic and trying to cling to me. Seeing how eager he was to keep his distance, I felt nothing but contempt. In our past life, he married me only because he didn't want to burden Tiffany. Then, after I cured him, he repaid me by tormenting me until I died, blaming me for keeping him from the woman he truly loved. He clearly couldn't stand me, so why shouldn't I do him the favor of stepping aside? As long as they didn't come bothering me, I couldn't care less. Andrew's face darkened when I gave him a sharp look and said nothing. Is that really how you talk to me now? He said, clearly upset. In my past life, I had always walked on eggshells around his feelings, encouraged him to stand again, and tolerated his abuse, whether verbal, physical, or emotional, with nothing but patience and kindness. And now, just one cold response from me was too much for him to handle. You better remember your words, he snapped and stormed off. My dad and stepmother still weren't at ease about Tiffany marrying into Andrew's family. They knew full well there was no such doctor she claimed to know. Maggie, my dad said. Didn't your grandfather leave behind any final notes or prescriptions? Andrew is your brother-in-law now. If you have anything, you need to hand it over. You can't let your sister suffer. Funny how in my last life, they never said anything like that to me. They even withheld the entire dowry Andrew's family had offered and forced me to sign a document cutting ties with them on my wedding day, terrified that I might become a burden. Before I could respond, Tiffany snapped. That old man, he was just a barefoot village quack. All that talk was just country folk exaggerating things they didn't understand. I looked at her coldly. If that's what you think of him, then don't come begging me when you end up a widow. Tiffany stomped her feet in fury. You're cursing me. You're just jealous you couldn't become an officer's wife like my mom did. Get her out of here before she ruins my relationship with Drew. My stepmother gave me a once-over and muttered, You're not even married yet. When Tiffany gets married, people will talk if you're still hanging around. They were clearly afraid Andrew's family would change their minds, so the wedding date had been set in a rush. There wasn't a respectable family in town that would choose me now. Not that they ever really intended to find one. I knew exactly how they operated. If I didn't agree, they would tie me up and marry me off anyway. Before they could say another word, I made my move first. I reached out to the Liu family and arranged to marry into their household. Their son, Noah Liu, had been bedridden for 10 years, unable to care for himself. Are you sure you want to marry him? Even my usually biased father was visibly shocked, but I nodded firmly. Before I starved to death in my past life, he had lived next door. When he noticed something was wrong, he'd sent someone to check on me. But Andrew brushed it off with a lie. That very day, I signed the household transfer paperwork and moved into the Liu residence. Noah's condition was serious and needed urgent acupuncture treatment. But as soon as I entered the military family compound, I ran straight into Andrew and Tiffany. Tiffany was furious. You've got some nerve showing up here. Drew is my fiancé, and you still have the gall to come knocking. Andrew turned to the gate guard and shouted, What kind of job are you doing? Get this woman out of here. Just then, Mrs. Liu came out and took the bundle from my hands. Wow, Drew, look at you barking orders now, trying to kick out my guest. Tiffany immediately lost it. You old hag. Our Drew is a battalion commander. How dare you call him Drew so casually? Mrs. Liu raised an eyebrow. Drew, this is the woman you're planning to marry. Her sharp gaze made Tiffany flush red with embarrassment. She tried to speak again, but Andrew, with a grim look on his face, grabbed her roughly by the arm and growled. Shut up. If you can't speak properly, then don't speak at all. Tears welled up in Tiffany's eyes. Andrew, instead of comforting her, turned to me and Mrs. Liu and offered an apology. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't know Maggie was your guest." Mrs. Liu didn't respond. She just led me upstairs. It wasn't long before the whole family compound knew I was going to marry Noah Liu. Andrew and Tiffany showed up at the Liu house together. Tiffany's voice blared like a siren. "Maggie, just because you picked up a trick or two from your barefoot doctor grandfather doesn't mean you can actually cure anyone. The Liu family only has one son. What if something goes wrong? You won't be able to handle the consequences." The neighbors started to gather. Mrs. Liu had just stepped out to buy the medicine I needed, and only the housekeeper was home. She was at a loss seeing the two of them bargaining in, faces filled with fury. Andrew looked absolutely disgusted. "You couldn't be my wife, so now you come up with this ridiculous scheme." The whole place erupted into chaos. Shameless. Torturing a patient just for vanity. Someone in the crowd shouted, "This is illegal medical practice. Someone call the police." Andrew stood there, face flushed. He must have taken some kind of medicine. But the coldness in his eyes was exactly the same as in my past life. In his eyes, I who gave him back his health was nothing more than a vain woman trying to latch on to power. I had let him go this time, but he still refused to leave me alone. Tiffany stood there with tears shimmering in her eyes, and gave me a sorrowful look. "Sis, stop hurting people. Just go home. Drew's willing to let go of the fact that you dumped him after his injury. He's even willing to help plead your case with the commanding officer." Then my father and stepmother arrived, each grabbing one of my arms and trying to drag me away. "Let's go. Don't ruin things here." Just then Mrs. Liu returned. "What's going on?" she asked. Tiffany immediately exploded, spewing accusations like beans from a broken sack. She ranted about how I'd been useless and lazy since I was little, how I was now a con artist pretending to heal people. "Ma'am," she said to Mrs. Liu, "please don't be fooled by her. She doesn't know how to treat anyone." My father quickly chimed in. "That's right. She's always been a liar since she was a child. Don't let her delay your son's treatment." Mrs. Liu pulled me into her arms. "Of course," she said. "You get a stepmother, you get a stepfather too. Maggie is a good girl. I begged her to be my daughter-in-law." Her words shocked everyone. With the Liu family status, even though Noah had been bedridden for years, there were still plenty of girls lining up to marry him. Just recently, a popular performer from the cultural troupe had shown up, and Mrs. Liu kicked her out without hesitation. And now, Mrs. Liu was saying she had begged me to marry into the family. Andrew's face turned pale, and the mood in the crowd quickly shifted. People started whispering and laughing at how those three, Tiffany, Dad, and my stepmother, had clearly been wishing for my downfall. You couldn't tell whether they were family or enemies. Humiliated, Tiffany left with my dad and stepmother, heads hung low. Once the crowd dispersed, Andrew yanked me aside and hissed through clenched teeth, "Maggie, go call off the engagement with Mrs. Liu. I'll introduce you to a cook from the cafeteria. He's not a bad guy. That way, you won't have to spend the rest of your life alone." I scoffed. "And who are you to tell me what to do?" His expression flickered with something more complex. "I'm doing this for your own good. Don't ruin your whole life out of spite just because I chose Tiffany over you." Ruin my life? Wasn't it him who ruined my life in the first place? How dare he even say something like that? I shook his hand off. "Worry about your own condition. The army's not going to take in a guy like you with nothing left down there." His eyes flared with rage when he realized I was looking directly at his lower body. "What did you say?" he growled. "I'm not done. The doctor Tiffany found already started treating me. I'll be running and jumping again in no time. It's just a matter of time before I'm back to full strength." The more I smirked, the darker his face got. Ungrateful, he spat. "Just don't come crawling back to me later." I watched his furious silhouette stomp away, and couldn't help but laugh quietly. What would I ever need to beg him for? He didn't know yet. But in just one more week, that manhood of his would be gone for good. Noah's recovery was going much faster than I'd expected. In just 3 days, he'd regained some sensation. That accident had left him with a high spinal cord injury. He hadn't been able to move anything below his neck. When Mrs. Azluzan saw Noah's fingers twitch, she burst into tears. He grabbed my hand and said over and over, "Thank you, Maggie. If it weren't for you, Noah's life would have been over. Don't worry. Once you marry into our family, I'll treat you like my own daughter." The day before the wedding, I returned home briefly because of tradition. Andrew happened to be there, too, helping decorate for Tiffany's big day. The whole family was fawning over them, acting like I didn't even exist. It wasn't until dinner that Tiffany finally acted like she just noticed me. "Oh wow. Sis, you're here alone. Your fiancé didn't come help out." "Oh sorry. I forgot. Your fiancé's a vegetable, right? You probably even have to wipe his ass for him." My old room had been completely taken over by Tiffany's things. My dad shoved me into a dusty storage closet instead. "After all the trouble you've caused," he said coldly, "I'm going to pretend you were never my daughter," letting me stay in that dusty storage room before I got married. That was the height of their so-called generosity. Before I could even react, the door slammed shut and was locked from the outside. Late that night, chaos suddenly erupted outside. People were shouting, "Fire! Help! Put out the fire!" And thick smoke started pouring in through the cracks in the door. I covered my nose and mouth as best I could and banged on the door with all my strength. I could hear the three of them outside, but none of them made a move. The door grew hotter by the second. Then I heard Andrew's voice. "Maggie, come out and apologize to Tiffany. Go back to the military compound and say the whole thing about her framing you was something you made up. If they think you lied to Mary and to the Liu family, you might just get a couple of years in jail. But if this gets out, Tiffany will have a reputation she'll never live down. If you do that, I'll find you a solid country guy to marry when you're out. No one will even know you did time." I had always known Andrew was shameless, but I hadn't expected him to go this far. "Screw you. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I lie?" His voice turned cold, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Then die in this fire. Better that than embarrassing everyone by marrying into that family." The smoke got thicker. I choked and clawed at the door like my life depended on it. Just before the flames reached the room, I managed to break free and escape. The next day, Tiffany rode out of the compound in a red decorated wedding car. Neighbors and relatives looked on with envy at the lively scene. But then someone suddenly asked, "Hey, where's Maggie? Wasn't she supposed to get married today too?" My dad glanced around, then put on a sorrowful face. "She argued with us yesterday, stole money from the house and ran away." One of the officers who had come with Andrew to pick up the bride sneered, "Sounds like she was just scared. I heard the Liu family even called an ambulance this morning. Must have botched the treatment on the commander's son." My stepmother jumped in eagerly, adding fuel to the fire. She started telling everyone about how I had made wild claims about curing a paralyzed man. Even though I had no real skills, just childish pride. The guests murmured among themselves, some shaking their heads. Jealous of her own sister. What kind of person does that? No wonder she cursed her own mother to death. She's clearly a walking curse. My dad wiped away fake tears. "I just hope the commander doesn't take it out on us." Everyone tried to comfort him, saying the commander was a fair and reasonable man. A flash of relief passed through my father's eyes. Right then, a military jeep pulled up at the gate. The crowd immediately buzzed with excitement. Wow, even the army sent a car to pick up the bride. Captain Hawkins must really have some pull. "Tiffany's going to live the good life now," someone said. Tiffany beamed with pride and stepped forward to grab the jeep's door handle, only to have it smacked away by a soldier. "This is Commander Liu's vehicle. You dare touch it?" My dad and stepmother went pale, and the people from Andrew's side didn't look much better. "This must be trouble coming," someone whispered nervously. My dad stepped forward quickly and waved a piece of paper. "I already signed the disownment letter with that disgrace of a daughter yesterday. Maggie has nothing to do with us anymore." Tiffany shouted too. "Whatever happened, it's all her fault. Go find her." But stepping out of the car was me, wearing a bright red wedding dress, standing beside Noah Liu, who was upright, alert, and glowing with health. Aren't you supposed to be burned?" My dad stammered, his voice breaking in shock. Andrew moved fast, covering his mouth with one hand before he could say more. They had all assumed I was dead. They'd seen the room turn to black ash and never bothered to double-check. They were so sure they started slandering me with confidence. Now seeing me standing there perfectly fine, they all looked like they'd seen a ghost. Tiffany's eyes darted around quickly. She rushed over, grabbed my hand with fake tears in her eyes and wailed. Maggie, did the Liu family drag you back because their son died? You didn't want the marriage and ran, didn't you? And now you've been caught and dragged back, getting mom and dad into trouble. Noah chuckled, stepping forward. You said I was dead. Tiffany froze. One of the soldiers behind Noah raised his gun and aimed it squarely at her. You've got guts trying to stage a fake marriage and kidnap someone. You think the commander is some country bumpkin you can toy with? Slandering the commander's name. Are you asking to be shot? Tiffany turned sheet white and flung herself into Andrew's arms. Drew, that's not what I meant. Please explain for me. But Andrew stood motionless as if he hadn't heard a thing. Andrew just stared at Noah. Who are you supposed to be? Noah stepped forward, every inch exuding calm pressure. You mean the one you just said was dead? Noah Liu? That's impossible. Andrew's voice shot up. I saw the medics go into your house this morning. Noah nodded slightly. Yeah. My mom got too excited and threw out her back. We had to call an ambulance. He turned to me and gently squeezed my hand. Sorry you had to deal with all this. My dad's away on duty and my mom's injured. We'll have to postpone the tea ceremony. I gave him a small shake of the head to tell him it was fine. A nosy relative suddenly blurted out. Maggie's husband. How are you all better now? Noah gave the group a polite smile. Thanks to Maggie's care, my condition finally took a turn for the better. My whole family says she's my lucky star. If no one minds, we'd be honored to invite everyone back to the compound for a small wedding toast. The crowd buzzed with excitement, hosting a banquet inside the military compound. That was no ordinary reception, but of course Noah continued. Anyone who doesn't recognize my wife as family doesn't need to come. He shot a glance at my father and stepmother full of warning. Tiffany saw the guests preparing to follow us and shouted in annoyance. Excuse me, my wedding is being held at a state-run restaurant. You people usually can't even afford to eat there, and Drew is a battalion commander with a bright future ahead. Not like some people who rely on mommy and daddy just to get by. Won't even make it as a soldier. Noah wasn't ruffled at all. He simply smiled and took a folded piece of paper from one of the guards, walking it over to Andrew. Andrew didn't flinch. So, I said something you didn't like. I'll apologize. Okay. I'm still a battalion commander, a decorated officer, a war hero. Noah nodded. Yes, Captain Hawkins. You've made contributions. You'll be given a new role accordingly. Andrew looked puzzled as he accepted the paper and glanced at it. Then all the color drained from his face. Tiffany tugged on his sleeve. What's wrong, Drew? Did they mess with your medical records? Don't worry, they can't just cover everything up. We'll go to a private hospital and get it checked ourselves. The paper slipped from his fingers to the ground. A curious bystander picked it up and read aloud. Genital atrophy, grade 3 disability, recommended retirement and reassignment. I didn't pay attention to the chaos erupting behind me. I helped Noah into the car and sat beside him, fingers brushing the fabric of my red wedding dress. I was overwhelmed by the surreal feeling of it all. In my previous life, I had been shoved hastily into Andrew's house. Forget about a nice wool coat like this. Not even a red blouse had been prepared for me. The moment I entered the Hawkins household, all I could smell was stale medicine and urine. Andrew had refused to go to the hospital, claiming it was humiliating. He lay around all day wallowing in self-pity. When I lifted his blanket once, I was almost knocked out by the foul stench of infection. Before I could say a word, he hurled a liquor bottle at me. If you find me disgusting, you shouldn't have married me. But now, Noah was holding my hand tightly. Thank you, Maggie, he said, for not abandoning me. I smiled at him, and he pulled out a tissue to wipe the corners of my eyes. Don't cry. From now on, we've got nothing but good days ahead. When we got back to the military compound, even though Noah's parents weren't there, plenty of people were helping to prepare the celebration. An older woman spotted me and practically beamed as she pulled me around to meet everyone. This is the girl who healed Noah, his lucky charm. I'd never been welcomed like this before. Back home, All I ever heard from my father and stepmother was that I was cursed. Bad luck. A waste of space. The banquet lasted until nightfall. After the last guests were gone, Noah, cheeks flushed, gently tugged me toward our room. Suddenly, Andrew jumped out and grabbed my arm. "Maggie, you switched the medicine in the box, didn't you? Just because I chose Tiffany over you, you poisoned me. You ruined me." Noah stepped forward and shoved him hard. "Say it. Say the word. You're a eunuch. Why is that so hard?" "I'm not," Andrew roared, his eyes bloodshot. "I'm not a damn eunuch." He stared at me, his gaze full of rage and desperation. "Why would you do this to me? Just because I didn't marry you?" I let out a mocking laugh. "Andrew, you really do think too highly of yourself. You actually believe every woman is as blind as Tiffany. As for revenge," I added. "What a ridiculous thought." Andrew refused to believe me. "Then how do you explain what happened to me? You swapped the medicine. That's why I ended up like this." As he spoke, he pulled out a bracelet and tried to slip it onto my wrist. "Maggie, I know you remember. I was wrong last time. Okay. You always wanted this, didn't you? I'm giving it to you. Just make me another pill, please." It was the bracelet the Hawkins family gave to their daughter-in-law. In my previous life, Andrew had refused to let me wear it, saying I hadn't given birth to a single child for the family and didn't deserve it. His relatives mocked me for years, calling me a hen that couldn't lay eggs. But the truth was, he had never even touched me. I shoved the bracelet away with a look of utter disgust. "Take your trash and get out of here." Andrew stared at me in disbelief. "Maggie, you didn't used to be like this. You only had eyes for me. You waited on me hand and foot, cooked porridge, brewed medicine. How could you possibly let go of me?" Noah could see how fed up I was. He called over a guard and said, "Captain Hawkins is clearly unstable. Take him home to cool off." Andrew struggled, but I cut in coldly. "The biggest mistake I ever made was pitying you." That broke something in Andrew. He went limp. All the fight drained out of him. As they dragged him away, I finally felt like I could breathe. I turned back to Noah, who didn't seem the least bit curious about what had just happened. "Maggie," he said with a soft smile, "this is our big day. Later tonight, you'd better thoroughly test how effective your treatment really was." He looked so smug. I couldn't help reaching out and pinching his side. Per the new rules, we still have a whole month before we can sleep together. Laughing, Noah wrapped an arm around me and pulled me into the room. By the time it all settled down, and I lay in bed exhausted, I closed my eyes with only one thought in my heart. We needed to stop giving Noah those tonics. The next morning, Tiffany's shrieking echoed through the compound. Noah handed me a robe, and we stepped outside to see the commotion. She was storming out of the Hawkins house, throwing things in every direction. "I want a divorce right now, Andrew. You're coming with me to file the divorce papers today. You filthy piece of garbage. Still lying to me, saying you'd recover. You didn't even go to the doctor. And now look at you rotting. You've been discharged from the army." Andrew stood silently under the corridor, face pale, lips pressed tight. He didn't say a word. Not until his mother was pushed out in her wheelchair did he finally mutter, "Tiffany, how did you become like this?" I knew what he was thinking. He couldn't make sense of it. He'd spent 2 lifetimes obsessed with her, the girl who had once died trying to find him a cure. He couldn't understand how she could turn on him like this. Clearly, none of the things I'd said to him before dying in our last life had sunk in. Back then, when he announced he was coming to propose, Tiffany had fled the house like it was on fire, terrified of being forced to marry him. She ran straight to the countryside. She even ripped to shreds the prescription I had gone home to get from my grandfather's belongings. Even after that was healed, he stayed twisted inside. When he heard right before I died that Andrew had recovered, he was racked with regret. He had my stepmother beg for medical expenses, hoping to salvage something. And just as she got the money, Tiffany died. And Andrew, he believed that was true love. The courtyard was in total chaos. Even soldiers from the base came to mediate. Andrew, however, still refused to agree to the divorce. "I may be retired, but I still get paid. I can support you for life." Tiffany shrieked. "Who the hell wants to serve a eunuch for life? People like you turn into twisted maniacs. Who would ever dare be with you forever? Andrew's whole body trembled in rage. After a long moment he finally muttered, "Face it, Ashen. If you think so little of me, then fine, let's divorce." Tiffany yanked at the officer in charge, demanding the papers, and refused to leave until she had them signed and sealed. Andrew's mother was furious. "Fine, then return the bride price our family gave you." Tiffany spun around, jabbing her finger in her face. "I should be charging you for emotional damages, and you dare ask for money back? Let me tell you, I'm not giving you a single penny. I earned that. Try harassing me again, and I'll shout it from the rooftops that your son's a damn eunuch." Andrew's mother gasped for breath, clutching her chest, and collapsed right then and there. Andrew's eyes went wide with horror. He quickly lifted her onto his back and rushed toward the hospital. I let out a sigh and looked over at Noah. Seeing that he wasn't stopping me, I walked down the stairs and gently laid Mrs. Hawkins down. "A heart condition needs emergency treatment. If you wait until she gets to the hospital, it might already be too late." I stopped Andrew, took his mother from him, and began pressing the pressure points on her body. At the same time, I told someone to call the hospital. Only when the doctor arrived and took over did I finally stop. The doctor examined her, then looked at me. Thank goodness for this comrade here. If not for her, the patient could have been in real danger. Andrew jerked his head toward me, eyes wide in shock. As he watched his parents get loaded into the ambulance, he looked like he wanted to say something, but after hesitating for a long time, he never opened his mouth. Noah walked up beside me, casually picking up my hand, which was still cramped from the pressure work, and began gently massaging it. "What an ungrateful bastard," he muttered. "Even a crab knows how to show gratitude." The warmth in his hands traveled straight to my heart. The burden that had weighed on me for 2 lifetimes began to quietly lift with just that one sentence. I looked deeply at Noah. "Thank you." He blinked, startled by how seriously I said it. I took him back into our room and told him everything that had happened in my past life. When he finished listening, he pulled me into a tight embrace, his voice full of pain. "So that's why you called him a bastard? No wonder you snapped. It's all over now, Maggie. You're safe." I looked up at him. "You don't think I'm a bad person? Watching him turn into a eunuch and doing nothing." Noah snorted. "He brought it on himself. And besides, he still owes you for trying to burn you alive. That debt hasn't even been settled." Seeing how fiercely he stood by my side, I finally felt at peace. "Well then," I said, half joking, "can we send him somewhere no one ever goes?" Noah nodded seriously. "We'll make sure he never gets to see you again for the rest of his life." Before leaving, Andrew showed up with a large pile of gifts. "I used to be your brother-in-law," he said. "You two got married and I didn't send anything, just a small gesture." There were boxes of nutritional supplements, clearly things originally meant for Tiffany. Seeing the bruises on his face, I recalled the gossip I'd heard a few days ago. Andrew had taken police officers to the Sioux household and gathered evidence that they'd deliberately started the fire. It had turned into an all-out dog fight, and Andrew hadn't escaped unscathed. His job assignment had plummeted from assistant factory director to head of security. I'd assumed he did it just to get back at them. But then he looked at me, his expression complicated, and quietly said, "I'm sorry." While I was still processing that, Noah stepped in smoothly. "The best way to make it up to her is to stay far away." I nodded in agreement, and Andrew's face fell. He gave me one long look, then turned and left without another word. Not long after, my father and stepmother showed up at the gates of the military compound with Tiffany in tow. But the gate guard, having gotten instructions from the household, refused to let them in. My father stood outside the gate, screaming his lungs out. "Maggie, I'm your real father. You can't just ignore me." I didn't even glance at him. Instead, I picked up the phone and called the police. The 3 of them made a scene, crying, shouting, and rolling on the ground until the cops showed up with batons and cleared them out. Sometime later, I heard more news about Andrew. Word was Mrs. Hawkins had passed away. Andrew had been set up with a blind date, a rural girl from the countryside. He didn't tell her the truth, just tricked and pressured her into marrying him. Turned out the girl was sharp. She got pregnant without saying a word. The Hawkins family, too embarrassed to go public with it, Had no choice but to raise the child quietly. Andrew never stayed home. He drank all day. One rainy night, he stumbled and fell into a drainage ditch and drowned. I didn't linger on it. I just pushed the stroller outside to get some sun. Noah had just gotten off work. He took the stroller from me and handed me a bag of peach crisps. The Sioux family's been sent to a re-education farm, he said. Want me to pull some strings? I shook my head. There's no point getting tangled up with them. Let them live out their sentence. The baby in the stroller smiled and cooed softly. I reached out my hands, wanting to hold him. Noah smiled and scooped up our little one. You agree with mommy too, huh? The sunlight poured down, tracing a golden outline around the two of them. Smiling, I popped a piece of peach crisp into my mouth. It tasted especially sweet.